Hey guys, this is Jeff Stanek with Figured Out Baseball. We've got a terrific Figured Out Baseball podcast for you today, a podcast that has probably been, 15 years or more in the makings. I'm very, very excited to have Wynton Bernard on the podcast today. Wynton and I go back a long, long way. He's actually one of the first players that I ever recruited, even though I didn't get to coach him or even sign him, but he's we'll kind of get into that in a little bit, but he's one of the first players I ever recruited as a college coach, working a baseball camp at Clemson University, and Wynton was there, and again, we'll get into that a little bit later, but so I've known Wynton for a long, long time, since the very early stages of my college coaching career, and I'm really excited to have him on the podcast today. I'll give you a background on Wynton, tell you who he is, and a lot of the things that he's done, before we jump into questions with him, and there's a lot more here to learn throughout the podcast. Wynton Bernard has one of the best stories that you will ever hear in baseball, and I'm so excited to be a part of it, and really, really excited to be able to bring it to you today on this podcast, and hopefully we'll be able to do it some justice. Today's podcast is brought to you by Diamond Kinetics. So here's a background on Wynton. He's originally from San Diego, California. He attended the famed Rancho Bernardo High School in San Diego. If you look up Rancho Bernardo, you'll see a litany of major leaguers who have come through Rancho Bernardo, one of the best high school programs in the country traditionally. He went collegiately. He played at Niagara University, a Division I school in Niagara Falls, New York. He transferred after his freshman year, transferred for his sophomore year to Riverside Community College in Riverside, California. Then he went back to Niagara for his junior and senior seasons. He was drafted in 2012 after his senior year in the 35th round by the San Diego Padres, pick number 1065 overall. He played that year for the Padres on their rookie ball team in 2012. He hit .232 that year, kind of an underwhelming start for Wynton. 2013, his second year in pro ball, first full year, he got 175 at-bats throughout the year as a part of he played got at-bats on 4 different teams, all 3 teams I think in the A-ball system, and then and for the rookie team as well. He hit .251 overall. After the 2013 season, Wynton got released. For a lot of guys, that would be the end of the story, but not for this guy. He was picked up for the 2014 season by the Detroit Tigers, which, wait till you hear just kind of how that happened. That's even a really interesting part of the story. But he was signed for the 2014 season by the Tigers, played in the full season, I believe, at full season A for the Tigers. He hit in 507 at-bats. He hit .323, stole 45 bases, had an .836 OPS, collected 164 hits throughout the season. He was a mid-season All-Star, a post-season All-Star, and actually won the Midwest League MVP that year. What an unbelievable season for a guy who got released the year before after only his second year in pro ball. 2015, he was promoted to Double-A, hit .301 in a full season in Double-A, stole 43 bases again, had 161 hits that year. Was a midseason All-Star that year as well. 2021, I'm going to jump down to 2021, his most recent season. I wanted to kind of give you an idea, just kind of a Wynton start to minor league baseball. And if I went through everything Wynton's done in the minor leagues, we'd spend half our podcast just on that. So I'll jump ahead to 2021. He played the whole year this past year for the AAA team, the Albuquerque Isotopes, the AAA team for the Colorado Rockies. Wynton in his career is a .281 career minor league hitter. He's got 194 career minor league stolen bases to go with 713 career minor league hits. He has played winter ball in Venezuela, Australia, Mexico, and the Dominican Republic. It's a really unbelievable story that I can't wait to get into. So, Wynton, I'm very, very grateful for you coming on the podcast today with us.
Jeff, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
So I do want to start with your story. This is the first time I've done this on a podcast. Typically, we just kind of have a conversation throughout the podcast and make it as educational as possible. But I want to have a chance to kind of go through your whole story, because I think it is, to me, it's an extremely inspirational story. I don't know that there are many people out there who have showed the perseverance and the belief in yourself like you have. You continue to amaze me from a distance, just the things that you go through, and that you keep coming back, and again, the belief you have in yourself is truly unbelievable, I think. And I want to kind of go back, Wynton, to where it all started, I guess, for you and I, at least for us to cross paths and go from there. But I'd like to even start just sort of how you got, how you got to Niagara University in New York. And I'm not asking you this because I want a pat on the back, but I think it's even cool to tell people how you got that opportunity. And, the podcast is meant to be educational, and I think it's cool for people to tell stories about, how they got to where they did or how they got the opportunity. And I think take me out of the equation altogether, but the story of just even how you got to Niagara, I think is an interesting one. But I also think it says a lot to young players out there that you just kind of never know, who might be watching or who might have seen you do something and they might tell a buddy about you or whatever. So can we go all the way back to Clemson Camp? And first of all, how in the world a kid from California ended up coming to camp at Clemson in the first place, and maybe we can just kind of go from there if that's okay.
Yeah, that sounds great. I appreciate the kind words too. It seems like my whole career it's been an uphill battle, but those battles are there for a reason, and I really think that my perseverance and hard work it's paying off because I've learned so much along the way. Let's take to that Clemson camp. I out of high school. My high school coach didn't really feel like going to camps was a big deal. He thought if the scouts like you, they'll come to you. But at the time, it seemed that wasn't the case for many players on our team. And I was like, how am I supposed to promote myself? I'm here in San Diego. I have family down in Georgia, and I'd really like to go to school in the South. How am I supposed to get recruited out there? And so my parents decided, the loving parents that they are, they just said they'd do anything for their kids. We'll take you to school down there so you can go to camp. So I ended up going to the Georgia Tech camp and the Clemson camp. And at the time, I believe there was 2 schools looking at me on the West Coast, but I hadn't been offered a scholarship. That was the tough part. I'm trying to get into schools, but for baseball, it's a little bit tougher to get a scholarship.
And this was summer after junior year, right?
Correct. Summer after the junior year. And we head down to Clemson, and I run into Coach Stanek. And I'll never forget the conversation we had. It was after I got done hitting, and you were asking me, a million questions. Is anybody looking at you? And I think I mentioned, like, there might have been a couple schools on the West Coast. I don't know if I said who, but you really believed in me. And that seriously went such a long way for me because my high school coach, I didn't feel like believed in me. And like the schools who were looking at me, it wasn't big at the time. It's junior year. Like a lot of the big prospects are already getting signed. They're going to schools. And I'm just looking for an opportunity to play. And I really wanted to play Division I. That was my thing because both of my brothers had got a Division I scholarship. And so after our conversation, and he said, I'm going to follow up with you. You were at Duquesne at the time. And I talked to my parents about it, and we were like, you know what? That could be the school for you. That could be Pittsburgh. And so, fast forward a little bit, we tried to do the Pittsburgh thing, and I believe that the head coach at Duquesne, he wanted to see me play, or for whatever reason, he wasn't going to offer me a scholarship. And I knew you were truly upset about it. And so I believe you called a couple schools on the East Coast for me, and you told me you were going to help me because you truly believed I was a Division I player, and you couldn't understand why the Duquesne coach wasn't signing me or other coaches weren't signing me. And I don't know, at the time, that's why I feel like, I have your picture of both of us in my room. The people I met along the way, like someone like you, it really went a long way. And I try to do that for kids now just to try to help them out. But if somebody believes in you, it's just an amazing feeling. You're like, I really can do this. You have no second doubt, especially at a young age. A lot of people don't believe in you in your 20s and your 30s, your 40s as you go on. But that's such a crucial time period in high school where if somebody believes in you, you really feel like you can do it. And so I do really want to thank you for that. Fast forward a little bit more, Coach McCoy at Niagara, who you first called, he was the one who first offered me a scholarship. And so it's funny because he offered me one day, and then he called me back the next day, and he goes, hey, you're actually not the player we were looking for. And then he calls me back the next day, and he says, hey, no, we want to re-offer you. And I don't know if you ever knew this, but I ended up asking Coach McCoy my senior year. I was like, why'd you do that? He's like, Coach Stanek said so many good things about you. And then he's like, we talked to a travel coach back home about you. He's like, we talked to your high school coach, and your high school coach didn't have anything good to say about you. And we figured we trust him the most because he saw you the most. And once I heard that, I was devastated. I said, I think he was doing that, not only to Niagara, but to other schools. And for whatever reason, I have my own reasons. I played basketball in high school. I don't think he wanted me to play basketball. A couple other reasons. I was the only black player at the time, and I did learn a lot at Rancho Bernardo, but for whatever reason, I feel like I was never pushed to go to the next level. So when Coach McCoy called me back the next time and he offered me, I was so confused. I was like, this dude is so indecisive. What is going on here? But it ended up working out. So that's how I got my start, going to Division I, Niagara University, small school in upstate New York.
And if I can jump in there, there's a couple things that I think are important to add in. So, I talk a lot on these podcasts about guys playing multiple sports. And for you, when I first saw you play, I can remember seeing you at Clemson Camp as well. And I can remember seeing you hit, and there were some things that were pretty raw with your swing. There were some things that I thought, just that I would like to just work with you and help you with a little bit. But the couple things that really stood out were, first of all, you're a pretty good sized kid at that time even. And you've got, a lot bigger and stronger since then. But I mean, you had a good frame, you're athletic, but just had really good, quick, strong hands through the zone. And I thought your bat speed was what really, really stood out among other things. And there was just something about the way your hands worked through the ball that I just thought this is going to work. There's no doubt this is going to work. And then the more I learned about your family, and correct me if I'm wrong here, and I know we talked a little bit about part of this before we started recording, but one of your brothers played college basketball, but your oldest brother played college football, right?
Correct.
Okay. So both of your brothers had played different sports at the Division I level, and I don't know if you ever considered playing a different sport, but to me, even at that time or now, it's why wouldn't this guy play some other sports? His brothers are really good at other sports. Why wouldn't he play a couple other sports and just kind of see what worked for him? But one of the things that I remember as well is talking to Coach McCoy at Niagara, and I was trying to talk him into you, because you're right, I was mad that Duquesne wouldn't give you a shot. But the reason why that happened, just to kind of go back to that and defend that coach a little bit, that was my first year coaching, and I didn't have any track record. I didn't have any track record of recruiting kids, and so I come back from Clemson Camp and say, hey, there's this kid from California who doesn't really have any opportunities, but I think we should offer him a scholarship. And you hear that on the surface, and that coach, you can see how a head coach would say, all right, I need a little more than that to give this kid that I've never seen and who my first year coach is trying to promote. I need a little more than that to offer this guy. You can definitely see that and see where he's coming from. But when I was talking with Coach McCoy at Niagara, one of the things I told him, you sent me a video of yourself dunk 360 dunking a basketball.
Yeah.
And I showed Coach McCoy that, and I was like, dude, this guy is an unbelievable athlete. I've seen him hit. You see his athleticism in this video of him playing basketball. Don't tell me that you can't coach this kid up. And I hear a lot now from talking with coaches that they like to recruit athletes. They like to recruit athletes who they feel like they can kind of help coach up through their time at whatever school they're at. But that was one of the biggest things that caught my eye about you. Even at that time, I didn't know what I was doing recruiting at that time, but it was how can't that guy end up getting a lot better than what he is now with the tools that I saw at camp and this natural athletic ability that he's got. So for what that's worth, you playing basketball helped you get to Niagara, believe it or not.
Absolutely. I know, right? It's funny because Coach McCoy, he even told me that. He's like, I watched one of your basketball highlight tapes, and he's like, we got to get this kid. So yeah, it did work to my advantage.
All right, Wynton. So then I want to jump forward a little bit, and in the interest of kind of telling your story here, which I have told Wynton this, and I want to go on record on this podcast saying this as well. When Disney picks up your story and they make a movie out of you, I just want to play myself. I want to be at Clemson and be the coach who first saw you, or play some role in this movie somewhere. When it becomes the next, they've made The Rookie and some other movies, and when they make the Wynton Bernard story, I want to be in there somewhere. But let's
I
go
got
back.
you.
Go back to Niagara, and I'd like you to tell people, if you don't mind revisiting it, tell people why you left Niagara for a year to go to junior college in California, and then why you ended up going back to Niagara. That seems like it, for people that wouldn't know the story, that seems like just an odd thing. Be it Niagara, you're from California, you go to New York for 1 year to play Division I JUCO ball in California, and then back to Niagara. And if you don't, I mean, you can go into as much detail as much or as little as you want there, Wynton. But would you
Okay.
mind just kind of telling people, what happened there in your life?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, this is probably one of the toughest parts of my life too. So, my freshman year, I had a really good season. I was able to start, I think, all but 2 games of the season, and we had about 5 seasons left in the game. And I get a call from my oldest brother, Walter. He goes, "You need to get home as soon as possible." He said, "Dad's not doing too well." And so, I had no idea what was going on, but I was like, I got to get home. So I asked my accounting teacher, said, "Hey, man, please go home. Please be excused. My dad's not doing very well." My dad ended up having a stroke. And once he had that stroke, everything changed. I mean, I was really down, and I came back home. We got to the hospital, and I'm saying, "Dad, he can't even recognize me." It just changed my whole my whole outlook. I was really, really, I guess the word is just devastated, and I was hopeful that he would get out of it, but I just saw how much pain he was and how much he was struggling. So I decided that I would help out my mom by, staying closer to home, and I could come home on the weekends and be able to spend time with my dad, make sure his recovery is going okay. And I saw how tough it was on my mom, so I figured this would be the perfect opportunity. I had a long conversation with Coach McCoy about it, and he totally understood. Obviously, he was upset about the whole situation, and I really appreciated that because he was more concerned about my dad and, me staying at the school. He was very adamant that I should stay there and make sure everything's okay. And once everything got back to okay, then he would love to have me back. That summer, I played at Riverside Community College, or that fall and spring, I played at Riverside Community College, and then that summer I played in Bellingham, Washington. And I'll never forget, I got the call. It was the day after July 4th. I got a call from my brother. He said, "Hey, Dad's not doing too well again." So I told the team in Bellingham, I said, "Hey, I have to go home. My dad's not doing well." I start driving. I get to Sacramento. My brother says, "Hey, you catch a flight. Like, he might not make it." So you can just imagine, how I felt on that flight. And is my dad going to make it? Is my dad going to make it? And I got to the San Diego airport. My brother Wayne picked me up, and we rushed to the hospital. But unfortunately, we missed my dad by 30 minutes. He had passed away. And when I got into the hospital room, I mean, I was screaming. I was just in total shock. I just couldn't believe it. And for a while there, I was upset at baseball. I said, I went all the way to Niagara. If I was home, I could have been closer to my dad. And then you get bad thoughts in your head. I've learned a lot along the way, but I was like, well, maybe if I worked harder, then that USC scholarship would have shown up. They wouldn't have had me walk on, or I could have been a couple hours from San Diego State, or I would have been closer to home. So all those bad thoughts started getting into my head. And then I said, I didn't have to go all the way to summer ball in Bellingham. I could have just stayed home that summer to make sure everything was okay. And so it took me, a good couple weeks. Thank the Lord that my mom and my brothers were very supportive of me. They pushed me, and they said, this is what Dad would have wanted you to do. And not only that, but you can't look at it like that. And so it changed my whole perspective on what I was going through. I said, now when I play, I'm going to play for him, and I'm going to love the game again. Obviously, it was hard going back my junior year. I returned back to Niagara, and being away from my mom, just worrying about her. But I went through a lot of adversity, and it set me up for the rest of my life, because I figured if I could get through that, then I could get through anything. And I'll never forget that Coach McCoy told me, God will never give you something that you can't handle. And so, like, a lot of those words and a lot of the support I had going through that was pretty amazing. And I returned my junior year. I didn't have such a good junior year, but my senior year, I really took off, and it set me up for a good start in my professional career.
What went into the decision to go back to Niagara as opposed to staying closer to home? I'm assuming, and I don't know this, but I'm assuming that after spending a year at Riverside that you probably had some other opportunities. You probably could have stayed closer to home, but what went into the decision to go back to Niagara for your last 2 years?
There was a couple of things. Coach McCoy was checking in with me every day, and part of it was recruiting, but we had such a close relationship. He honestly felt like I could really trust him, and I told him, I said, if I get something closer to home, I might have to take it. But if I come to the East Coast, it could have been the top school on the East Coast. I wasn't going to go there. I was going to go to Niagara, and I communicated that with him. I did really good at Riverside, and I was getting some scholarship offers and some looks. One of the biggest ones was San Diego State, and that would actually been the perfect situation. So I went on a visit there, and they offered me a scholarship. Talked to Coach Gwynn, Coach Martinez, and they go, "Well, you're gonna need a couple more classes to get your AA degree." So when I was at Riverside, I thought I was doing everything right. I was seeing the counselors, I was talking to the coaches, but they couldn't. I needed one more class to get in through rolling admissions, and then they said they had stopped the process during that summer, so I couldn't take a summer schools class at San Diego State. So that was basically my final decision. When I didn't feel like I could get into San Diego State, then I was like, I'm going back to Niagara, and Coach McCoy gave me a full scholarship to come back, which I'm very, very thankful for. And he gave me a full scholarship my senior year too, because after my junior year, when I didn't do so well, he still believed in me, and he honestly trusted me to figure it out, and he was there every step of the way.
So then you got drafted by the hometown Padres in 2012. When it got to the 35th round, that's getting pretty late. There aren't even 35 rounds anymore. There were 40 rounds at that time. Did you know that you were going to get drafted, or was it? Did it get a little dicey for you there toward the end? Like, how confident were you that you were even going to hear your name called that year?
Oh man, there's honestly so much to the story. Sometimes I forget the missing pieces, but 3 games into my senior season, to end the season, I broke my hamate bone. So we're playing against the University of Buffalo, and I'll never forget they had Tom Murphy, who's the big catcher. I think he got drafted in like the 3rd round. We played Niagara versus Buffalo, and all these scouts show up to the game. I mean, we got the A's there, we got the Pirates there, we got the Padres there, the Cubs are there. I mean, there's 15 scouts there. And you never see that in upstate New York. You might see like 3 or 4 at max. But there's all these scouts there. And I go 3 for 4 in the first doubleheader, and I think I go 4 for 4 in the next one. And I steal a couple bases off Murphy. So after the game, an A's coach or the A's scout comes up to me, the Pirates scout comes up to me. All these scouts are like asking who I am. Like, who's this kid from Niagara? And at the time, I think I was top 5 in stolen bases in Division I, and I was doing really good hitting. And so they're asking about me and asking Coach McCoy about me. So they asked me to fill out these questionnaires. I'm filling those out, sending them back. And then it was like 2 weeks later, I break my hamate bone, and Coach McCoy's like, hey, you have to tell all the teams, they're thinking about drafting you. So I send a message out to about 4 or 5 different teams, tell them that I'm hurt. The A said, I'm sorry to hear that. Probably not interested. The Pirates said, yeah, well, we wanted to invite you out to the workout. He's like, hamate bone's a tough injury. Probably won't make it back. You probably won't be healthy. Sorry. The Red Scout, I remember he said, you're no longer invited to our workout. It was like I had 4 different no's from all the teams, and the Padres were the only team that invited me to their workout. And actually, there's a coach back home. His name's Coach John Quintera, who's also been one of the best mentors. He's almost like my second father. He's the one who helped me out with hitting my junior summer. He put me back on track, and we have a really close relationship even to this day. We talk almost every day. But he knew somebody within the Padres organization as well, and he said, "Hey, you need to look at this kid. Like at least try to give him a shot at the pre-draft workout." So I ended up going to a pre-draft workout with the Padres, and all I could do was run and throw. I couldn't hit. So when the ball was fielded to me, I would literally just catch it in my glove, and then I throw it. And then for running, I had to run a 60 time. So I line up against another guy. Excuse me. I run a 6.460, and I got a bad. It was like in the middle. I did something in the middle where I took like an awkward step, and I was like, "Oh, I could run faster for sure." They didn't tell me my time at the time, so I finished through the line. I go, "Can I please run again? Let me run one more time. I swear it'll be faster." And the guy goes, "Don't worry about it. You just ran a 6.4." So fast forward to the draft. I was really hopeful that I was going to get drafted. I've always been a positive person and always had like a positive outlook. And so even if negative thoughts come into my head, I try to just quickly turn into a positive, and I've learned that everything happens for a reason. So during the draft, I was sitting there, and at the time, I think first day was like first 1 through 10th round, and then the next day was like 11 through 20. So I didn't get drafted on those first 2 days, but I got a text message in like the 31st or 32nd round, somewhere around there, and Jaron Madison, he was like at the time I think VP of scouting or player development. He texted me and he said, "Wynton, we're about to draft you in the next round." And once I got that message, I mean, my eyes just lit up. I started screaming. It was just like all the adversity I've been up to through that point with my college coach, not my college coach, my high school coach, my dad's passing. It was just like everything I went through, just the tears were just flowing because I was like, here's my opportunity. I'm getting to live out my dream. So it was one of the most exciting moments of my career is hearing my name called and watching it go across that board.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Diamond Kinetics. No matter what season you're in, our friends at Diamond Kinetics are here to help you train smarter and get better so you can dominate on the field this season. DK's line of mobile-based motion technology products give players and coaches the ability to practice smarter, practice more effectively, and have more confidence in the batter's box and on the mound. On the hitting side, DK's Swing Tracker bat sensor provides in-depth, comprehensive swing analysis for the data-driven baseball player and coach. Attach the sensor to any bat, swing, and immediately see your barrel speed, bat acceleration, and 3D swing plane to enhance player development. DK's revolutionary swing fingerprint identifies your hitting hot zones and helps you improve your approach at the plate. With Diamond Kinetics, you will train smarter and get better and have more confidence on the field this spring. So that happens, Wynton. You go off and play. You're playing, but as a 35th round pick, you're not getting a ton of opportunity, not getting a ton of at bats. 2012, was obviously a short season for you, and then 2013, you got 175 at bats throughout the whole season. And in a minor league season, as you have proven, if you play every day, you're getting 500 at bats, and you got 175 at bats. Through 2 seasons in the Padres organization without getting a ton of opportunity, you get released. Could you talk about what your mentality was like at when you got released? Because most guys, if they play 2 seasons and get released, for most guys it's over. Not only are they probably not going to get any other opportunities, but for a lot of guys, I think that they feel like, all right, I gave it 2 years, I gave it my best shot, I don't have an opportunity anymore, so I'm done. But that wasn't obviously nearly the end for you. Can you talk about what it was like to get released, and then if you can transition into how you ended up, getting picked up by the Tigers? You've told me that story before, but I'd love for you to tell it again. Can you go through that period of time from getting released, how you felt, like what it was like at that point, and then what ended up transpiring to get you to sign with the Tigers organization?
Okay. Yeah. So, going into 2013, I was real confident. I had a really, really good spring training, and I've heard later on that they were actually going to release me after my 2012 season, but since I had such a good spring training, they ended up keeping me. And so I give that thanks to a hitting coach out here, and his name's Bill Plantier. He worked with me all off season, and he continues to this day. But he changed my whole swing, and we figured it out. And I was pretty upset, like you said. 2013, I had a really good spring training. I was expected to get some more opportunities, but it was tough. I was always like the fifth outfielder on every team, and opportunities weren't really coming my way. So after the season, I'm working out. It's January. I'm getting ready to go into spring training, and I get a call, and somebody says, "Hey," he's like, "we don't have any more room for you, and we're gonna have to let you go." And tears are falling. I was in total shock. I couldn't believe it. But at that moment, I just told myself, I can't give up. And I've always had that attitude, just because I feel like, I don't know, I'm meant to do it. And so I said, okay, well, what's the next step? Instead of like dwelling on it, I just go, well, what do I do next to fix it? So I started calling a couple coaches back home. What do you suggest? I didn't have an agent at the time, so I was just doing everything possible, and I ended up finding a workout down in Florida, and it was for the Tigers, and I ended up finding one for the Dodgers, LA Dodgers. So I went to the LA Dodgers one, did really, really well there, and the VP of scouting, he just said, "Hey man," he's like, "I'm sorry, but we have a couple guys who are younger than you that we're going to have to stick in the A-ball. He's like, "We really like you, but I'm really sorry, we can't give you an opportunity." So then I said, okay, well, let me make this voyage down to Lakeland, Florida for an open tryout. And these open tryouts are unbelievable. I mean, you have 120 guys, and you're basically looking for one guy to get signed, two guys to get signed at most. So I show up there, and there's a man named Benny Castillo. I had no idea who he was. Benny comes up to me. I just get out of my car. He says, "Hey, man," he's like, "I don't know who you are, but something tells me that you're going to get signed today." And I was like, who is this guy? Is he an angel? Like, what in the world is going on? And so he tells it to his players. He goes, this guy's going to get signed. And he brought a couple players with him, like, I think from down in Miami. There's a couple of Dominican guys. So I go through this workout with the Tigers. We hit on the field, and I've been preparing myself for this moment. I've been crushing balls over the center field wall, and we threw from the outfield. It was like all my throws were on the money that day. And then we ran. And meanwhile, everything we do, they cut off about 30 people. So the first thing we did was throw. After we threw, they cut 30 people. After we hit, they cut another like 40 people. So it came down to like 8 guys. Then they had just us 8 hit on the field one more time at a different location. And then it was just me and this other guy. Me and one other kid from University of Miami. They're like, "All right, you guys are going to race against each other." And the way they set this up, now I think about it, I was like, this was like a movie. I mean, it was crazy. So here I am, like, I feel like I'm in like Game 7 of the World Series, and I race against this guy, and I beat him by a couple steps. And then we race again, and I think I ran a 6.4, both times that day again. So I'll never forget Dave Owen. He comes up to me afterwards. He goes, "Hey, man," he starts asking some questions. He said, "We just got to check our notes on you and see what the scout said about you. But if we like you, we'll give you a call." I'm like, man, I did all of that. If we like you, I'll give you a call. So here I am just waiting in the car in Lakeland, Florida, in the middle of the spring training complex. I call my brother Walter. I tell him how well the workout went. And I just said, we're listening to a Drake song, and it goes, I get it. And I'll never forget, like, I just hung up with them on the phone, and then the Tigers called me, and Dave Owen goes, he's like, "Wynton Bernard," he's like, "when one opportunity closes, or one door closes, another one opens." He's like, "Congratulations, you're a Detroit Tiger." Oh man, that sticks out as such a good memory too, because I was so proud of myself, and it went a long way in my career. I was like, look what I just had to go through, and I overcame that battle. I overcome another battle. I've been through adversity, but I won't give up.
It's
And
amazing.
I think that's
Who in the world goes to an open tryout and gets signed? It's just it's
right.
amazing to me.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
so
that's how I got signed.
then you play for the Tigers, and that year went in 2014. You won the league MVP. You went from a guy who got
Right.
released to winning league MVP. And I don't care what anybody says if they say like, well, he was, you were in full season A, and maybe you were a year or two older than the average guy in that league, or I don't know. I don't know what people would possibly have to say about it, but it doesn't matter. You're the best player in the league.
Right.
You hit 323 and 500 at bats. You stole 40 plus bases. 836 OPS. It's for someone who basically wasn't on anybody's radar. But going into that season, you weren't even supposed to start, right? Tell me how that all went down.
Yeah. So I mean, the guy who signed me, he basically said, "Hey, there's no guarantee. Like, you got to go in the spring training and kill it." And luckily, I had a really good spring training. And went in my first day, and I thought I was going to start because I was still in the conception that no matter how well I did, like, the best players should play. And so we had guys in spring training doing terrible. I mean, striking out every at bat. Probably exaggerating a little bit, but I felt like I was doing my job, and they weren't doing theirs. But they told me that I was going to be like the fourth or fifth outfielder. And I accepted it. I just told my manager at the time was Andrew Graham, great manager. He's from Australia. I said, okay, that's fine. My attitude was, when my opportunity comes, I just have to be ready for it. And so, and I still treat it the same way. I never ever root against my teammates. I always want them the best from them. I just want the competition to be even. Like, if he does better than me, then he does better than me. If I do better than him, then I do better than him. And so, one of the center fielders, he got hurt it was like the very first game. He was our starting center fielder. He got hurt, ran into the wall. I think he did something to his Achilles. And then from that point on, I was the starter. And I just took it and ran with it.
It was amazing. And I got to see you play that year. It just so happened that my wife's dad lived in Clinton, Iowa, and we were visiting him that summer, and my wife and I had just had our first baby, and I'll never forget, because she's met Wynton at several stops along the way and have gotten pictures at a bunch of different minor league fields with Wynton. But like that year, she was a couple months old, with a drool-covered bib at the game. But I remember, for whatever reason, I looked it up just to see who was playing that day, because I knew there was a game in Clinton, and looked it up, and it happened to be you guys. You were playing there, so I thought that's really cool. I knew you were having a good year, and I just thought I'd go over and see you, and we got a chance to see you, and we got a chance to. You and I sat down for lunch. I think one of those days that we were out there, and got a chance to talk. And I don't know if it was then or after the season, but I kind of asked you what had happened, because obviously, when nobody hits 232, 251 playing part time and then come back the next year and is an MVP in any sort of a league, just that story is crazy. But I kind of asked you there. I know when we sat down, I was just kind of asking you basically where's the confidence come from? How can you believe in yourself this much when other people don't? And in the face of adversity, most guys see the numbers on the scoreboard and see what they're hitting, and that ends up sinking in and kind of, it's not a good thing, I don't think, most of the time, but most guys end up believing that number, right? Most guys end up believing what they see, and that's who they kind of believe that they are. But you believe something totally different. How did you end up going from a guy who played 2 years part-time, gets released, and then you get picked up by another team and do what you did? How did you become that player? What happened?
I believe it was my faith, honestly. I was faithful, and I just truly felt that I could do anything I put my mind to, and I still feel that way. It's like, you only get one shot on this earth, so why not aim for the best? And I'd rather, it's kind of like the man in the arena quote, but basically, I want to be that person who goes out on the battlefield and battles. I don't want to ever look at myself like, what if? If I can look in the mirror at the end of the day and say I honestly gave it my all, then that's it. And at that point, with the part-time playing, I knew that I had a lot more potential, and I feel like if I got my full potential or got to play a lot in 2013, I might have had the same season I did in 2014, but I didn't. I hadn't yet. and I knew there was more for me out there. I just hadn't tapped into it. And so just the confidence and belief in myself, and as well as like the people surrounding me, putting, positive things in my ear, I think it all went a long way. And like I said, just having the faith in God that there was a purpose for everything and there was a reason for everything.
Okay, so you go in 2014, have an unbelievable season, get on everybody's radar. 2015, you had a really good year in Double-A as well, hit over 300, 40-plus stolen bases again, more than 160 hits again, which are really good numbers in minor league baseball when you're playing a lot less games than big leaguers, and just pretty unbelievable. But then you hit a couple other bumps in the road, right? There's a couple other times when some other things happened to you, because you got, if I'm not mistaken, you got put on the 40-man roster when in 2015 you got put on the Tigers roster. Does that sound right, or was it after 2014?
It was right after 2014. I was on Halloween of 2014.
So you remember the exact day?
Yeah.
I would too, man. I would too. So you were on a 40.
I got a random message.
So you're on a 40-man roster after being an MVP in A-ball. You have a really good year in 2015, but then after the 2016 season, you ended up you elected free agency. Now, most people have never been through that. How does that happen?
Right.
How does that, after the ride that you had and the years you had with the Tigers, was that something that happened because of conversations you were having with the Tigers? Was that just something you felt like there was a better opportunity out there somewhere and you were going to find what that is? How did you end up deciding that you wanted to try the minor league free agent market? Because I got to believe that's a scary situation too, because it's not like the big league free agent market. Minor league free agents, a lot of times, they don't resurface again. Can you kind of talk through that part of it? Because this is a conversation I don't think I've ever had with you.
Yeah, so, I mean, it was kind of weird. Honestly, after the season, they actually didn't even call me. So after getting taken off the 40-man roster, then you automatically become a minor league free agent, or I guess you become a free agent right after the season. So they have 5 days after the World Series to sign you. And if they don't, then you become a free agency, then you can elect free agency. So I honestly hadn't even heard from the Tigers, and then it was like, okay, well, I guess now I can go wherever I want. And I ended up signing. I believe that year was with the Giants. I signed with the Giants, I think pretty early too. So it was just like, okay, now I get a new opportunity with the new team. But I don't know. Baseball is at the professional level, it's a little tough. The communication, honestly, isn't the best. I didn't know what they were thinking. Maybe they didn't know what I was thinking. But for whatever reason, they hadn't returned or they hadn't called me.
So you play a year in the Giants organization, free agent again. You sign with the Cubs after the 2017 season. So the off season after 2017 going into 2018, you spent a couple years in the Cubs organization. Then 2019 went, and obviously if I'm missing things, you can fill them in. But again, I'm interested in telling this whole story. 2019, you started the year in AAA for the Cubs. You're sent back down to AA at one point. I believe you were on the DL at some point there, the disabled list, which I think they still called it the disabled list at that time. And then next big adversity comes, and you are released by the Cubs in July of 2019. Can you talk about that a little bit? Can you talk about just what happened, what led up to that, and what happened after that? Because I know on paper what happened after that, but maybe you can tell us a little bit with a little more detail. How did that happen? How did you get to the point where you went from AAA to AA to being released and then resurfacing again, a couple weeks later in independent ball?
Okay, yeah. So that was pretty shocking too, because I went into that season. I had a really good spring training. I got to be able to go to a couple big league games with the Cubs, and I hit 400 in spring training. I was like, I'm off to a hot start. Start off in AAA, and I'm doing pretty good. I wasn't playing every day, but the opportunities that I did get, I did really well. And my manager and my hitting coach even communicated that with me. They were like, man, you look a lot different than you did in 2018, and we could tell the changes you made. Everybody in the organization was honestly giving me a lot of love. I was doing all the right things, defensive and stealing bases. And then they said, well, there's not really a spot in AAA. Somebody got sent down and we're gonna have to bump you down to Double A. Are you okay with that?" And I said, "Absolutely." I was like, I just want to keep working, you know. And they took that conversation, and they really liked that as well. I'll never forget. John Baker pulled me aside. He said, "You're one of the most respectable man in this game because of that conversation we just had." He's like, "Most guys who are 29 years old are saying, no, F that. I'm not going down to Double A. Like, who's going to go down to Double A at my age? But you took it like a man, and we really like that." So I go to Double A, and I do really well down there. And then I just get called in the office one day. I can't remember what I was hitting at the time, but I think it was really good. And he just said, "Hey, we need to call up some guys from IA, and we're bumping you out." And so once again, I was just like, man, I can't believe this, but it's not over. Like, I just look how good I did in spring training. I feel to the bottom of my heart I'm a major league player, and I'm not gonna stop. I keep getting better. I wasn't getting worse. I was getting better. So my agent sent out some feelers, and it's the middle of the season by now, so nobody's really signing guys. And I ended up going to independent baseball. I played for the Sugarland Skeeters, played for Pete Incaviglia, and the misconception of independent baseball is it's so bad or players aren't that good. The league is really, really good. It's honestly comparable to AAA. We had a lot of older guys who had already played in the majors who were trying to work their way back. We had some high-pick first-round guys who had gotten released by their team, and they were trying to work their way back. I think that year, 25 guys had ended up signing back to a major league organization. And so, but it's still independent ball. You know, it's still a grind, and people look at it like, oh, you're playing independent ball, but I looked at it as this is another opportunity to showcase what I got, and I'm just going to keep improving the best of my ability. I read a couple books. I read Relentless by Tim Grover. It's Michael Jordan's trainer. I read Can't Hurt Me, just to make sure my mind was still sharp and to push through the adversity.
Yep, I'm kind of looking some things up here, and you, in 2019, you're hitting .323 in Double A. I mean, you know, you were playing pretty well in AAA. You get sent down, and like you said, a lot of guys would just either wouldn't go, or you know would ask to be released at that time so you can sign with somebody else or whatever. I mean, you went, and not only went, but you're playing really well. And then you get released, and a lot of guys at that time too went and would just maybe say, okay, this is it. And one of the realities of independent ball, which I've never played there, I've never coached at that level, but I know that independent ball, there are so many guys that get shuffled in and out. If you go to independent ball and you scuffle for 2 weeks, you're done, you're released, because there are 100 other guys waiting to take your spot. Because it's like guys like you in your situation, guys get released from affiliate teams, and they're looking for somewhere to go. So at any point of the season, guys from guys that played part of the year in the big leagues or were in Double A or Triple A get released. Like a lot of them try to go to Double A or try to go to independent ball. And so if you're, I've coached a bunch of guys who right out of college didn't get drafted but put up great numbers, got to independent ball, and literally were there for 2 weeks, and they go 1 for 9 and they get released, and that's their whole pro career. So no, it's crazy. Like, you've got to go there and produce, and you did. You went there, you went to independent ball and hit .314. Like, It's incredible to me, just what the things that you've done, the things that you've gone through. And then you went that year as well, and that was at one of the years you played winter ball, and then 2020 hit, and I mean, you had a good winter ball. You 2020 hit, and I don't know what you were looking at that point. I'd love to kind of see what you were thinking, what you were planning on doing. What opportunities you had going into 2020 before COVID hit, but obviously, nothing happened in 2020. There was no minor league baseball in 2020 at all, and guys like yourself who might have been playing minor league baseball somewhere didn't get a chance. Can you tell us? And this is something that you and I again haven't spoken about before, but what were you thinking going into 2020 season before all that stuff hit? What did you think your opportunities were going to be? Were you planning on going back to independent ball? Were you planning on did you have a pro opportunity somewhere else? Just kind of curious what that spring looked like for you.
Yeah, so going into 2020, I hadn't signed with the team yet, but I remember Pete called me. He said, "Hey," he's like, "just sign back here, and we'll get you going." We don't know exactly what's going to happen during the year. I think at the time, I don't even know if COVID already hit yet. But he just said, just sign here, and then we'll try to get you back into affiliated ball. And so I ended up telling him I want to do it. And then it was like, I think everybody was at spring training at the time. And then COVID hit. And then we didn't know what was going on. Like nobody, like everything shut down, like you said. But I was still working out every day. I was hitting every day. I texted guys from San Diego, hey, let's get this going. Like, we can't stop our workouts because what if, something happens and we get a call? So we're doing live ABs at Scripps Ranch High School. I was working out, basically at home, hitting with Phil Plantier. And they say that there's going to be an independent league that's starting in Texas, like a 4-team league. And if guys need to get pulled up to the majors, they're going to need to call them from somewhere. So I went down to that league in Texas. We had a 4-team league. We were playing like 4 times a week. I know a couple guys did end up getting signed. They're mostly pitchers, but I think about seven guys went back, and they were able to play in that 2020 season because I'm not sure exactly how it worked, but I remember you had your like major league roster, and then there was like extra guys if you needed them somewhere working out. And so it wasn't obviously the best year, but I still feel like I made the most of it. I could have just not played that year and said, hey, I'm just going to wait till everything ends, but I wanted to continue to improve my game and continue to get better, not like lose my skills or anything.
And then you did another almost improbable, like never hear of this kind of stuff happening thing, in my opinion. You signed with a new team. You signed with the Rockies.
Yeah.
You played the whole year in AAA in 2021. If you look at minor league baseball, just the minor league baseball website, here's a guy who gets released in 2019, doesn't play affiliated ball in 2020, and then resurfaces and plays AAA baseball the whole year and has a pretty darn good season at 30 years old. And that's the thing about it is a lot of times in baseball, guys, the older they get, even if they have the skills, they don't get the opportunities. But you have continued to get the opportunities. You continue to just defy odds and do things that the other guys just flat out aren't doing. Wynton, how did that opportunity come up? Because I know, again, you played winter ball, from the 2020 to when the calendar flips to 2021. You played independent ball there, and then signed with the Albuquerque Isotopes for the 2021 minor league season. How did that opportunity even come up? What transpired for you to even get the shot to do that?
Yeah, so my agent, he was sending out a lot of stuff on me because I had a really good 2019 season, and then even when I went to the league we formed in 2020, and a lot of guys who were there were actually guys with affiliated teams, because at the time it wasn't really like an independent league. It was more of like guys who needed to still get working. So there was a lot of AAA guys there or big league guys who got sent down, all playing in this one league. And my agent had sent some stuff out like, hey, this guy's the real deal. And then I had a big home run to the Dominican, and he was sending those clips out and getting a couple bites from teams, but nobody was offering at the time. And I actually went out, and Connor Joe, who's with the Rockies, he was hitting out at Westview, and Bud Black was there. And I got to hit with him. And Bud Black was like, we need to get this kid. And wouldn't you know it, 2 days later, I get a call from my agent. He said, hey, the Rockies want to sign you. I was like,
did you know Connor Joe? Did you know Connor? Or did you just happen to be on a field where he was hitting as well?
Oh, no, I've known Connor since we were probably he's a little bit younger than me, but since we were 12 years old. I think I'm in when I was in 8th grade, he was in 6th grade. I think that's right around the time we met. And so we hit together in the off seasons and stuff like that. But he had just signed with Colorado at the time, and so I think Buddy wanted to take a look at him and see what he's got. And yeah, that's basically where it started. They're like, how does this guy not have a job? And so here I was with another opportunity that I've really had to just keep fighting for and not give up on. My whole goal is just to always just keep improving. I went to Mexico this off season and learned some new things that I hadn't learned before. It's just keep learning, and my body still feels like it's 22. Everybody's like, oh, when you're 30, like your body declines. And I'm like, look at all the greats. Look how Michael Jordan, look at Ken Griffey, look at Bonds, look at their numbers when they turn 30. Like that's the prime of their career. I'm like, I don't know where people get this misconception from. I'm like, I feel great. So I just keep at it.
And there's kind of I think for a lot of people, probably there's a sweet spot of where your body is still at peak condition, but you know, as a mental and emotional player, you get more mature and you get to use your maturity and the things you've learned, in addition, you know, to what your physical skills can do. Because I think it's pretty well understood that at younger ages, guys are super, super talented physically, but they sort of lack some things on the maturity side of things that are going to keep them from reaching their peak, their ceiling. But maybe you're kind of in that sweet spot, and it's amazing to me that you keep bouncing back, Wynton. And I just, if I'm you, I probably quit playing like several different times, just because, again, kind of as I said earlier, it's like it's hard to not hear what other people are saying about you or see the results and just kind of believe it. Not that your results are ever that bad, but teams just sort of kept, you know, casting you aside or not giving you opportunities. But you've never stopped believing in Wynton Bernard, which it's so inspiring and amazing to me. Wynton, how could you, I know you've sort of touched on it a little bit, but how could you possibly have this type of perseverance? Like, where does it come from for you just to continue to persevere and look for opportunities when there are seemingly no opportunities, but somehow you just keep finding a way? Where does that perseverance come from?
Yeah, I just feel like, you know, all the greats, it's never really come easy for. And I just use different examples. For example, in like some of my workouts, you know, when I feel like it's getting too hard, I'll think about my dad. I'll think about how much pain he was in when he couldn't walk. When life gets hard, I think about my mom and how she had to take care of my dad hand and foot when he couldn't walk. I mean, that's 2 years. I'll think about my brother's stories. My brother ended up making it to the NFL, but in high school, they basically told him he was never going to play even past college, let alone in the NFL, and he ended up making it to the NFL. And my brother Wayne, I use everybody's story as my drive, and then I relate it to my own. I'm like, everybody has adversity in life, but if you just keep persevering, you never know where it's going to take you. And I never want to have that regret, like I didn't try, because once you have that regret, then you kind of dwell on it and you think, what if? And I never want to say, what if? I just keep wanting to believe in myself. And if I didn't think I could do it, or if I didn't think I could play professional baseball this long, I would have stopped a long time ago. But I really believe in myself, and I guess it just comes from my heart. I just truly believe in myself.
The confidence level is so amazing to me as well. I don't know. Just there, I've coached a lot of guys and you know, have seen a lot of guys that have, you know, that have played pro ball or whatever, and or even through college, and I've never met anybody that their confidence never wavers. Is that how it really is with you? I mean, or at some point does your confidence waver, but you maybe have some sort of a secret, I guess, as to, and that, I don't know, and it might be just you have a couple of tough weeks, or like I know this past year you started out really well, you had sort of a cold streak in maybe the second half of the season, and then ended up really well again. But like when you hit a funk at the plate that seems like it's a month long, whether it really is or not, what do you turn to keep your confidence high and to continue to believe in yourself when the stats maybe show that you don't belong, or that you can't do it anymore, or a team gives up on you, or just whatever it is, all these things that you've been through? How do you overcome the difficult times when on the surface it seems like it's time to quit, but you just don't quit?
Right. I think it comes from me, kind of like you said before, I just believing in myself. I'd be lying to you if I had never said my confidence didn't waver. I think it's natural in humans to to just be like, oh, like what's going on. So to counteract that, I basically just say everything happens for a reason. And if I continue to just take steps in the right directions, everything is just always going to pay off. I've hit million slumps in my career, and over the years I've learned that's baseball. It just happens. And for whatever reason, it's just like I'm going to come out of it. I don't know at what point, but it's always going to work out for the best. But if I keep giving it my all, and I keep practicing on these small little details, everything is going to get better. And it always does. It's just a matter of how soon you kind of get out of it or when it happens. But it's just a belief in myself, and I think it goes a long way.
Where does that come from, Wynton? Because people, it doesn't matter whether they're baseball players or they're just normal people going about their everyday lives that have struggles, whether it's at work or it's in relationships that people have. Like, people hit, rocky times and they give up. People hit rocky times and they do something different instead of just kind of trying to push through with where they are. But again, you take this mentality and this you have this belief system where, like you just said, you know that if you just keep doing the right thing and keep trying to progress, that things will turn around. Like, where is that from? Is that something that you learned from your parents? Is it something you learned from your brothers? Is it something you learned from books that you've read? It's hard for me to even, I don't know. I don't think most people ever get that. And you got it at such a young age. Where does that come from you? How did you even, I guess, learn and develop that mentality?
I was pretty blessed because both my brothers played sports, and I was around their teammates and around them at a young age. And I'll never forget, one of my brother's teammates at University of New Mexico was talking about the power of positivity. And I was probably like 6 or 7 at the time, and he recited a verse from the Bible. And I just remember him saying, if you think positive, positive things will happen. If you think negative, negative things will happen. And I would see how my brothers would go about their business, and Walter in particular, he would always turn things into a positive. And I kind of took that and made it to the extreme where I've heard people tell me, like, you're so positive, it doesn't even feel real. And it's not that it's like over positive. It's just like I always try to put a positive twist on it, because then it makes it seem like it's happening for a reason. And so even looking back at all the adversity I've been through, I'm like, well, that had to happen because this needed to happen, or that, like, my dad had to pass away for me to understand what adversity was like in my pro career, because there could have been times where I crumbled going, 0 for 30. But now if I go 0 for 30, it doesn't feel like anything. I mean, it's like I've already been through the worst, and that's setting me up to help me get through the best of times. So I think the positive thinking, and it's not easy. I mean, I still, like you said, have to read books to help me, to remind myself, to constantly remind myself. I read the Bible to remind myself, like, this is why I'm here. This is what I'm doing. Make a positive impact on others. Love one another. Like, all the positive things in life. When things are going bad, I can bring those into any type of situation. So I'm very thankful for my family, and like I said, all of the teammates, my brothers have me around, and my parents, just because they're the ones who have instilled that into me.
And just for my money, it's one of the most unbelievable stories of perseverance for you to still be playing. And I know I jumped the gun on this as far as kind of telling your story, because the story's not over. The story is not going to be over until, I guess, Wynton Bernard says that it's over. And I'm sure that there are a lot of people that want this for you, but I can't tell you, Wynton, how bad that I want to come to I want to be there when you make your major league debut. And I've been telling you that for years. Like, I really believe that you're going to get there, and it's such an unlikely story to begin with, but like, the more and more things happen, it's like the more I don't have any doubt that it's going to happen, and I want to be there so bad. I'm a very, very, very small part in your story, but it's one of those things, I guess, to me, like, you might be more important to me than I am to you. I don't know. I can't help but root for you every step of the way. And I want to see you succeed in the worst possible way. And I wish I could help you more. I wish I was able to, wish I knew your swing enough to be able to call you and talk to you when things weren't going well or whatever. But all I really feel like, I could do is send you a text once in a while just to encourage you or just to kind of tell you we're rooting for you or whatever. But I can't wait to be there and to wear my homemade Wynton Bernard jersey on your when you're making your debut, and it's such a cool thing to think about, and I really believe it's going to happen. So I know that I'm jumping the gun in that regard, in that, like, I'm telling your story before the story is over, but I'm so glad to be a part of it and to be able to tell people this much of it, and hopefully when people are listening to this, they'll start following you as well. And follow you until it's done. And hopefully it's not done until, you have a really long and successful major league career. There are other guys that have done it that haven't made their debuts until, they're 30 years old or older, and guys that have had some pretty lasting careers, and guys that have made a big impact on their teams, and the fans kind of get to know their story. And I can't wait for people to hear the Wynton Bernard story, and hopefully they just appreciate it as much as I do. Wynton, I can't tell you, man, what a joy this has been. This is definitely, I told you before we started recording that we were going to tell your story and then get into some other stuff, but I should have known that it was going to take an hour just to kind of tell the story. I'd love to have you back on another podcast and just talk to you like we do most of our other guests about who you are as a player and things that you do, and just, kind of give some tips and some insights as to your training and the things you've learned as a hitter through the years, and just, things that would help young hitters and coaches.
Okay.
I'd love to have you on another podcast, but for today, this has been an extremely enjoyable podcast for me to be able to kind of tell people all the things that you've done and been through. And it's only a part of it. There's still a lot more that probably we didn't even touch on today, but I'm so thankful for your time, Wynton, and thankful for you just coming on the podcast.
Yeah, I'm also thankful too, and I'm thankful for you being part of my life. Like, honestly, and I've sent you that text a couple years ago. I didn't think you knew that I had that picture in my room, but I feel really blessed. Not only you, but there's been a few people that I feel really blessed to meet, and it just went a long way in my career. And I appreciate you letting me tell my story. I know it gets long, but there's so much to it. And like you said, we didn't even touch on everything. There's so many dynamics, and somebody who hears this, I hope that they could, be inspired by it to never give up and just keep pushing forward no matter what you're going through. And hopefully whoever's listening can take a couple things from it.
We'll leave the rest of the details to Disney or to the Netflix original or whoever picks this up. I'll send some emails after this thing gets published. But it's really a great story. I've enjoyed it so much, and Wynton, I want to wish you the best of luck. I hope we can have you back again sooner than later. But thank you so much again for being a part of the podcast and being a small part of Figured Out Baseball now.
All right, thank you so much. Anything else I can do to help out in the program and